So I saw Impractical Jokers yesterday at the movie theater, and it just dawned on me that I've never reviewed a comedy on this channel before. This is my first one. Be gentle with me. No, Doolittle doesn't count. That's a January horror movie. When I first went into Impractical Jokers the movie, I realized that playing jokers in movies now is very important to some people. They get Academy Awards and stuff. So which jokers are supposed to be impractical? My vote goes with Jared Leto and Cesar Romero. Unless you've been imprisoned in Azkaban for most of your life, Impractical Jokers is not another failed DCEU experiment. It's a reality comedy series which is sort of a game show hybrid of Candid Camera and Jackass. Using hidden cameras and in-ear microphones, one person is planted into a situation involving real people while the rest of the crew dares the plant into humiliation by getting them to say or do ridiculous things. And I find that kind of humor to be surprisingly funny. The show manages to keep it very PG-13, so in this hypersensitive society, this actually works. I confess I have never seen an entire episode, but I have watched enough to get the idea of how this works. It's pretty funny stuff, without having to be aggressively gross or mean-spirited. I guess the end goal of any successful television series is to eventually become a movie, but what do you do with something like Impractical Jokers? You throw your arms up in the air and say, fuck it, and use the laziest writing you possibly can to make a movie out of it. You get the biggest co-star cameos you can afford and write a script around it. The story starts out in the 90s where they're all younger versions of themselves, and they manage to sneak into a Paula Abdul concert. After pretty much making asses out of themselves, they have to flee the scene, with Paula herself swearing vengeance upon them. Flash forward to present day where product placement positions Paula Abdul and the Jokers in a Red Lobster. Really? Paula Abdul in a Red Lobster? Only this time she recognizes them as the Impractical Jokers and not the dumb kids who snuck into her concert and made asses out of themselves in the 90s. She invites them all to a concert in Miami, but accidentally gives them 3 passes instead of 4. And so our Jokers decide to compete in several pranks to decide which 3 will actually go to the show. So now we get to the biggest comedy cliche in cinematic history, the road trip movie. Or better yet, known as the tax-free vacation that they can write off as a business expense. But the Jokers movie budget couldn't afford Boca Raton, so I guess we'll settle for Miami. Now I need to warn you that it might sound like I'm about to tear this movie a new asshole, but actually I am not, because while there is very generic script, it's a very generic plot, the movie finally hits its stride when the pranks actually start. When the movie is being the TV show is where it truly shines. And I confess I was getting a satisfactory amount of laugh from this situational reality comedy. I don't want to spoil those jokes because that is what saves this movie from being overly generic. So I will keep it very vague. Mall Santas, broken down cars, PowerPoint presentations, and job interview were some of my absolute favorites. In fact, movie kind of makes fun of itself about halfway through when one of the Jokers are explaining that they are shooting a movie and striving towards making a 3.5-star movie. I realize this is very meta and some low-hanging fruit, but fuck it made me laugh. So the bottom line is when this movie is being the TV show, it works. The audience was really into it as well. When the show is trying to be a movie, it's not as charming as it thinks it is. I'm proud to say that the laughs are eventually worth sitting through the worthless script, but that doesn't mean I'm going to give it a pass for poor effort. On the other hand, the laughs are strong enough that they'll stay with you after you leave the theater. I'm giving this one a 3 out of 5 cheese curds. Velveeta cheese. This is actually pretty funny for a PG-13 comedy based on a TV show, but it does take a while to get going. However, it doesn't overstay its welcome either, and I was genuinely surprised it avoided the comedy movie trope of having post-credit outtakes. There are none. When the credits roll, the movie truly is over. I have to admit that I left enough of an impression on me that I at least wanted to go home and maybe watch a few episodes of Impractical Jokers. If that was the goal of this movie, I'd say they nailed it. I also applaud that this is a comedy that you can probably watch with an older relative without feeling awkward or embarrassed, so that's another compliment. However, I can't forgive making the audience wait too long to get to the good stuff or falling victim to comedy movie cliches like this one. It's somehow less offensive than the PG-rated Doolittle, which makes me wonder what kind of fucked up alternate reality I live in or whether I'm being pranked by Hollywood.